everybody. Team Inception, as we call ourselves, was formed in October 2013, and it was initially chartered to exist for approximately 18 to 24 months. The team consisted of 4 engineers pulled from different disciplines, a Scrum Master and Product Owner to keep things focused and moving, and a manager who we jokingly referred to as the guy who would get us coffee. Over the 18 months that we were together, we were tasked with transforming the culture of DevOps and IT, improving the speed of software delivery, and basically doing anything that would fit under the umbrella known as DevOps. DevOps for me is about culture, so this afternoon I have the very awesome task of introducing you to these guys. This team would not have been successful without each and every one of them, and I feel important to share a little bit why. So, I'm going to read this because I want to make sure I get it right, so I apologize for not making eye contact. Tim Bielawa says his background is release engineering, but he also writes kick-ass documentation. Tim takes the time to think about what people say to him and encourages others to do the same by asking simple questions that I don't think we would otherwise think about. Instead of tossing words around, he has reminded me that words matter and that doing the right thing is the most important thing to do. Chris Murphy is a system admin by trade, but also has the most awesome and sometimes horrifying stories from his days working at sea on our charter boat. Chris takes the time to process every technical tidbit that comes across his plate in a way that has reminded me that thoughtful working is as important as getting work done. He has provided the stability and foundation that I needed to make it okay to take risks. Steve Milner comes from a security and programming background. In about 2 days of meeting him, I disabled my PayPal account, enabled 2-factor authentication wherever I could, and no longer use the same password anywhere. He also has one of the most exceptional developer. He is the most exceptional developer I have ever had the pleasure of working with. Through very patient explanations and showing me how to do things, Steve taught me that it is okay to trust my coworkers, even with things that I think as a woman in technology I probably should not reveal. And finally, Ryan Cook came to us as a system administrator from Duke, and Ryan, I am so sorry, but here's the truth. He taught me that it was okay to just break shit. I can honestly say that before working with this team, I was horrified by the idea of Netflix's Chaos Monkey. Ryan's constant questioning, poking, and peeking under the crud, his curiosity, is what made this team nimble. And regardless of how long Ryan has worked at Red Hat, he will always be a new guy to me.
You trying to call him Chaos Monkey?
Maybe just a little bit. So guys, I'd love to hear more about your individual perceptions of DevOps were before you started with the team. So Tim, why don't you go ahead and share your ideas?
The team, pre-Inception, I had a very negative view of what DevOps was. Kind of made me mad sometimes. I thought people were trying to put a label on something that I was already doing and taking credit for it. I thought it was more like an excuse for people at all these startups to go to every con you see in your Twitter feed every other week. I just thought it was ridiculous. I loathed it. The term was ridiculous to me.
Chris, how about you?
I have quite that visceral reaction to DevOps. I've listened to a lot of podcasts, done a lot of reading on D-Zone and other blogs about DevOps and and all the efficiency that you can be gained by doing DevOps. Unfortunately, I was really focused on the tools, and I really didn't read about the culture. I didn't understand how the culture would affect the actual implementation. So definitely a tool to report.
Steve, how about you?
I was kind of in between these two guys. So coming from a security background, I was definitely afraid of joining this team and being told that we need to give everybody root access to everything. So I took it upon myself to try to say that I would keep everyone in check and make sure nothing bad would occur. Kind of embarrassed to say that now because there's no, that was never an issue, never a problem. But other than that, I also saw it more as a tooling thing of, what kind of automation can we have, and that's what it was. I never saw anything related to culture initially when I joined the team.
I
started a lot later on in the project than everybody else. So my idea of DevOps was, it was just this fancy word that they put on automation at those unicorn companies like Etsy and Netflix, where they just deploy something like 30 times a day. So I just thought it was getting code out the door as fast as we can.
So Steve, tell me a little bit more about the team. Why were we all assembled?
Well, each of us comes from a different background. As an example, Tim here is from a release engineering and developer background, and Chris from a system administration background, and heard myself from development and security, and Ryan from a sysadmin background. But there was enough overlay between those disciplines that we're able to go after any technical challenge and have the expertise to be able to go for it. We also came from different parts of the organization in IT, and that meant that we had different views of how the culture should look and what should be changed. That also helped us when it came to cultural changes that we were trying to do.
So why were we called Inception?
Before the team formed together, we all kind of knew the team was coming, so we got together. It was us three and another fellow named Magnus Haymark. We sat down and we tried to come up with a name that was not the DevOps team, because we didn't think the DevOps team would go over very well. So we came up with a whole bunch of different names. Chris came up with the Wolf, which we decided not to use, but
Probably qualify that from Pulp Fiction. You know, the wolf comes in, fixes all your problems.
but we did end up going with Inception. I can't remember which one of us came up with it, other than it wasn't me.
So I think Tim has a little bit of insight into how everything really came about. You know, standard story, as always, started in a bar.
Yeah, I think a lot of good technology stories start or end in bars. Luckily, ours started in a bar. Months before the team was actually formed, I'd been talking to some of the IT leadership about just problems we'd been having, processes that were getting in the way, and I was getting a sort of collection of folks with me. We were starting to gather our grievances, figure out what we all thought, and share problems with. Talked it out with IT management. A few months pass, new management comes in, start having the same conversations with them. We're sitting around in a bar, Busy Bee and Raleigh, if you're there, you should go. That's the DevOps main base. That's where it all started. Months before the team was formed, the boss and I are sitting there, just shooting back and forth ideas for how we can make IT better. And we thought, what if we had sort of the Wolf team, as it were? There's this team of badasses, or people who were just really good, who knew what they were doing, already in the department, who could take care of business. Months go by, then I hear an announcement. It sounds really familiar. This team's being formed, the DevOps team, which we all cringed at. But I threw my name in the hat as soon as I heard it.
So, Chris, what were some of the early problems we focused on?
Well, like Tim said, we were formed probably about 3 or 4 months before the actual team was to start formally. So we started meeting in rooms at the Moon Base Bar, pretty much anywhere we could find, to try and come up with ideas of how we were going to make things better. And really just, we wanted to get off on the right foot. We wanted to just kind of be able to get some really good, quick, easy wins. So when the actual day came, it was kind of like letting a bunch of badgers out of a box. It was kind of like flying and tried to fix everything all at the same time, not really communicating with each other. And luckily we had Jen here who kind of rope us back in, and we started what was called Sprint Zero. So we went backwards and went back and read, some of the good DevOps books, like Jess Humble's book, Continuous Delivery, and the Phoenix Project, and all of those kind of books. And also went through a lot of the practices, agile practices, made sure everybody understood how to room storage and things like that. And we also decided to try to do some quick wins, not the way we had done before, but actual quick wins that we had gathered from the other departments in IT, which I think you guys will talk about in a second. Some of the other stuff, the other large thing that we decided that helped us out a lot, and was we decided to use containers on RHEL as our development platform, and it was kind of I put it out there as a choice, I guess, and there wasn't a lot of people on board right at the beginning, but by the end, I think we decided it was definitely the best choice for this type of things.
Yeah, and early on too, our management decided they really wanted us to come out the first month and make some massive change somewhere. And literally, some massive change somewhere. So we went to work looking to find what we could change. And when we came up with the idea of, hey, we think this will make the best impact and the best change, we kind of got asked, well, maybe don't do that right now. And it kind of killed our I don't know, it killed our momentum at the time.
Major buzzkill.
And that's really what caused us to fall back into a sprint zero and realize, hey, we weren't communicating well. Our management didn't know what they were asking us to do. Maybe there was miscommunication already right there. So that was a big thing that pushed us into sprint zero. We really should have done that to begin with.
Yeah, one of the other large problems we found was we started to realize we were doing what we called the Princess Bride moments, and you described it.
So we'd be sitting in a room and we'd be talking about some technical thing. And as an example, the term full stack. What Chris saw as full stack and I saw as full stack are completely different things. So we would sit there and either argue about something that we completely agreed upon and had no idea, or we'd sit there and just pass over something thinking that we're in total agreement and have completely different expectations of the end results. This caused a lot of friction, not just between us, but just the whole team to come out and kind of have to hash out, like, wait a minute, no, this is not what we agreed upon. Why are we doing this? But we started using the Princess Bride moment term because of this word doesn't mean what you think it means from the movie. And from then on, once we realized that that's what we were doing, it became a lot easier to identify them. And then just stop and say, hey, we're having one of those moments. Let's define the word that we're talking about or the phrase we're talking about right now. And that gave us the basis for our shared vernacular that we used inside the team.
Steve, what tools did we work on initially?
Early on, we did a lot of CI/CD work with other teams, just helping them get up to speed. But shortly thereafter, we moved into two tools that come directly to mind. One was called JSON Stats, which what it did is it exposed what software and versions were installed on systems. And the other one was to look, which basically was a web front end to those daemons. And also did some service proxying. The reason we decided to go that route was because many of our developers were coming up and saying, yeah, we don't know what's on the other side. We know what we're delivering, but we don't know if they'll really run or not. For instance, they're developing for Python 2.7, and it's 2.4 in stage, while it's 2.7 in QA, and it's something else on their laptop. And it, drove people kind of nuts. So we gave them this visibility through those tools. And I believe there was another issue with that too that came up from the release perspective.
On the system side, you'd spend half your day or good chunks of your day trying to get into the zone, and you get that thing from the developer, and you know what it is. They want to know what version of Java is installed on the server. So you take a minute out of your day, here's your flow, SSH, here it is. A few minutes later, maybe the next day, just keep constant interruptions. So we just tried to minimize that to make these guys' days better so they can focus on it.
It was also kind of funny too, because as we made these tools, we kind of hit some of those same issues as well. So the tools were written in Python, and we literally hit that. We literally hit that we were developing for 2.7, and it was 2.5 or 2.4, and so we were backporting and doing all this work just to get the tools to let other developers be able to see what was there.
Didn't you have to rewrite the WYSIWYG module?
Part of it, yeah.
From scratch?
Well, not the C, but yeah, the Python interface, yes.
And also, developers don't have any way to know if their puppet runs actually run. So this also exposed that they could see, hey, my WAR file has landed on all of my front servers and run and stuff like that. I think that'll come later.
Yeah, it comes later. So I know this is one of your favorite topics. How did you figure out what to work on?
Oh yeah. How we figured out what to work on, we didn't figure it out. We let other people figure it out for us. Really. It's a tactic I took from my time as a student organization leader at West Virginia University. Every semester or so, all the student org leaders would hold what we call the complaint fest. We'd entice kids to come and say, hey, pizza, put your name and no name if you don't want, put notes on it, drop it in a box. Whatever you think needs to go, what's going on? Is a lab broken? Are you running out of things for e-tech? Whatever. We did the same thing in IT. We said, we're holding the IT complaint fest. Come, misery loves company. Be miserable together. Find out you have all the same problems. And give us something to work on. Great discussions came out of it. An entire document with just notes and notes and notes of things people really cared about. I think that was the first thing that started really bringing people together. Started to form that community that was really needed to get the movement up.
And filled up our backlog for a couple months.
Like years.
Yeah, we still haven't gone through the whole backlog.
So Ryan, what kind of technical debt did we discover?
Really early on, we discovered that there were differences between environments. There was also frozen environments, and if you're working in automation, a frozen environment as a hard stop point is pretty much going to kill automation. As a release engineer, Tim had created a tool to bypass frozen environments so that builds can kind of keep going on. But we'd also run into clusters, and what you'd expect with a cluster to be all the same. One server would have a slight variation in another one, but they were still part of the same cluster, which I don't know how that works, but I guess they had the same server name. But regardless, it just makes it very difficult to automate and actually test against.
Forgot my favorite story, so why don't you tell me about new self and Puppet?
So, about my first or second month starting at Red Hat, we had some work to do with Puppet. And I thought to myself, well, I had worked with Puppet at my previous job. I have this t-shirt, a sticker on my laptop. I can do Puppet. So I make a change to some Puppet code, merge it in, and end up restarting HTTPD on every single server that relies on Puppet. And to put that in greater context, every server pretty much within Red Hat IT relies on Puppet. So you can pretty much guess the scale on that one. And so we noticed really early on that we had some technical debt in the way that our Puppet was set up, where we had just intermingled modules. We also had, you didn't know when Puppet was going to run, or if it was going to drop something on this run, or if it wasn't going to drop something. Just that what if. Since then, we have put some fixes in place to untangle that, and also to better call Puppet to make sure that your release hits when you want it to.
If people didn't know who Brian was before that day in IT, they definitely knew who he was after that day.
It's a great way to introduce yourself.
So it must have been a little bit dismaying for folks to find out that they were having technical debt. So Steve, why don't you tell me a little bit about how they took that discovery?
Sure. It kind of was 50-50. As I guess you'd expect, the majority of, well not majority, 50% of the folks came back and realized that we were showing up, pointing out technical debt, and sometimes even people type debt, and took it to heart and actually realized we're here to help, and we're not here just to point out their code and laugh, or tell them that they're wrong, or that they should be doing it our way because we're smarter, cooler, whatever. And those folks, really, we were able to get their stuff going through automation a little bit faster and all that good stuff, as well as to help them with general culture stuff. The other 50% took it as more of a value statement, I would say, and felt like we were actually calling them bad because we found a minor or sometimes major issue with something. The majority of those folks did turn around, but a few of them did keep with the don't touch my stuff, I'm a special snowflake. Or worse off, sometimes they would say things like, well, technical debt's a buzzword, it doesn't exist, which is kind of a hard thing to get. But overall, most people came around and understood that we were there, and we were kind of, in some ways, free labor, that we were there to actually help them get those things fixed, or at least put it on a piece of paper that would go in front of their business folks so that they were aware.
So it sounds like maybe there's some culture going on in there. So Tim, why don't you explain what it's like to work in Red Hat
pretty sure at least some people in here have like been involved with open source projects, right? Anybody? Anyone ever submitted a pull request? Ever read the mailing list, perhaps? Heard about the flame wars on Linux kernel mailing list? It's not like that. It's not Linux kernel mailing list, but there's a lot of strong opinions in IT because we're the open source company, you know? So there's a lot of strong opinions, and there's a lot of people who want to contribute to everything. People get held to their opinions sometimes. They really stick to them. They can get intense, but it's what drives us to be better, I think. A lot of people get into this idea of they just want to make it better. And sometimes it's hard to get it to tone down, but it's a lot like being in the open source community.
So sounds like DevOps impacts the way that we work together. Steve, you want to share a little bit on that?
Yeah, the first thing is people have to work together now. You can't just be an SME that does one thing and I do one thing good and that's good enough. The quickest example that comes to mind would be, for instance, a database administrator. They know SQL, maybe they know multiple flavors of SQL, they know a specific database, whatever, but in many organizations, all they care about is, and all they're measured on is, did the SQL work? Did it break anything? Is the database server running? Yes, good, I'm fine. Don't care about the rest of the applications. My thing is up. That's fine. That's not acceptable anymore. You have to be on the hook with everyone else. It's not, I'm a DBA in charge of DBA things. It's, I'm a DBA who's on the team that's in charge of delivering some product, some functionality, some content, whatever, along with the rest of my team, which is sysadmins and developers and UI folks and business folks and all that stuff. So it's more of a group type of thing rather than a individual type of thing. And it also forces people to have to trust each other a lot more. So you can't just look across the room and say, well, you know what, my title is higher than your title, so I'm probably going to do most of the work and you're probably going to do less of the work. That's not okay. If your title's higher, you're now going to need to be helping other folks and train those folks and teach those folks because they're on the hook as much as you are. And that's just the way it's going to be. And the last thing I can think of off the top of my head would be things like grudges. While they've never really been acceptable in the workplace, they still happen, but they're less acceptable now, I would say, because if you hold a grudge against a team member or even somebody outside of your team, you're actually just slowing yourself down or slowing your company down, and that's against what you're trying to get done. You're basically hurting yourself there as well.
One of the things that the first thing you talked about where you have to work together. What happens there is you start to learn the other people's jobs, and you don't have to learn them proficiently. You can actually be an SME. You can learn 20%, 30% of what they do. What that allows is when you start to get into a flow and you've got a Kanban or a Scrum board or however you're gonna try to work, and you have work that comes up to the top of the queue, you can start pulling. You know, Steve's a security guy, I'm a sysadmin. There's a security card that starts to come to the top. I can start pulling that, and I might be able to do half of the ticket, you know, or half of the card, and maybe work with Steve to finish the rest of it. But with that, you start learning. Obviously, that's going to start increasing the width of progress and getting flow faster.
I guess it also adds empathy too. I mean, there's times where I've worked with these guys on things where I've never been directly involved with that type of work before, and I've always wondered kind of in the back of my head, why in the world is that thing a 3-hour task? That's ridiculous. That's a 5-minute task. I don't get it. But actually having to sit there and be with them, I can see, and I can feel for them when those tasks come up, and I can also help try to fix those, if possible, better from a different point of view.
So Chris, would you say we were successful?
So I would definitely say we were a success. The biggest reason I would say that I think is when I'm walking down the hall, I can start to see a lot of the display boards where people are actually showing their work, showing how their systems are operating. Usually it's the radiators. Just a board with when was the last gate commit, how long did it take to get to production, all that kind of stuff. And that kind of was born out of what we started to do, where we had our radiator out, and creating Docker containers and then pushing them all the way up. And they could see that entire flow, and if they had questions, you could ask us. Excuse me. The other success that I saw was just kind of a groundswell of people wanting to actually learn how to do this, coming up to us and trying to interact with us. So
If you don't mind, there was also as with any organization, silos pop up, and it was very easy for teams to just say, well, you know what, I'm in charge of the, I don't know, XYZ service. I don't really care what they're doing in the other services. We started seeing a lot of those walls start to fall over. So we started seeing people who are in different teams show up at each other's stand-ups. Not because they're there to yell at someone or ask for something, but just because they were curious, well, what are you doing? And they actually ended up helping each other with CI/CD related stuff, as well as getting around certain bugs, or even warning each other. Oh, well, you just brought this up. Well, we were expecting to in 3 weeks have this functionality rolled out that might impact. They wouldn't have known that unless they would have actually showed up at those stand-ups. So that was another thing that was successful.
And Ryan's team actually is building on what we implemented with that Docker workflow, where you guys have an actual workflow of Strata, which is one of our internal products, and it's from the engineering side of the house, they can build a container on their laptop, push it up to their Jenkins, it'll come over to IT's Jenkins, and Ryan's build service will spin it up, get it to a place where you guys go to QA before there's the first checkpoint.
Yes, what we do is we do a dev deployment, we do testing against it. If everything passes, then it goes straight into QA, and at that time it opens up a ServiceNow ticket. It's, I guess, everything that we kind of painted the ideas for actually in motion now.
So what are some of the lessons that we learned, Chris?
All right. So the word DevOps, we talked about it right at the beginning. A lot of people have a very negative connotation when they hear the word DevOps. So we definitely try to stay away from using that word and not really mask it, but I guess just try and find other ways of explaining it to people so that we didn't lose them the first time we started to talk to them. Because if you said DevOps, sometimes people kind of shut down and just walk away. One of the hugest things we learned was if you're going to do Agile or any kind of DevOps project, you've got to have a Scrum Master and a product owner. It does not work if you have one or the other, or try and combine, the one, which Jen unfortunately had to do for a while.
And she did really
well
for a long time. Yeah.
But you definitely need a dedicated role for each of them. And I wasn't going to say this phrase because I've tried to say it before in our group and people didn't really like it, but culture eats strategy for breakfast. I think that's what the keynote last night. That's one of my favorite phrases. You have to have the culture within the company from the CEO, president, all the way down to who's just starting, that you can have this kind of change. You can have groups that are just kind of coming and going, making their own decisions that might affect large parts of the IT industry. I mean, your IT department. And you have to trust them. You hired them, you vetted them. You have to trust them to make the right decisions, that they're going to do the right thing for the company.
Yeah, I've actually had an experience, using the word, I used Agile while talking to somebody. At first it was a great, we were talking back and forth, coming up with ideas. When I brought up an Agile, like, hey, we could do an Agile type thing here and iterate, boom, shut down. It became about why Agile is dumb, why there's no documentation, and why I'm silly for bringing it up. And if you know much about Agile, you know that's not what it's about, but it's what people like it to be about when they don't like the word because they feel like it's a buzzword. So that was one of the ways that I learned early on to not use these words like agile and DevOps when talking to folks. Instead, talk about the processes behind them or the methodologies behind them. And people usually, the same people will usually be all about it and all over it.
So Ryan, now that the 18 months is over and you've been pretty much on a team for 6 months now, what are we all doing today?
Due to the work with containers in the Inception group, Jen, Chris, and Steve, you can are working with Atomic, Cockpit, OS Tree, Kubernetes, that whole stack.
Project Atomic guy, he's not random.
We have people pinned. No, they do excellent work, and they're continuing everything that they learned in Inception, bringing it to the Atomic space. Continuing with the idea of measurement, Tim is finishing up a project to bring Collect D graphite into the organization to allow for measurement of projects, releases, and so that many other groups can use it. As Chris mentioned earlier, I'm working on the platform as a service project. We're hopefully going to bring containerization to the IT organization and our customers to allow people to just run their images in a environment where they don't have to worry about the OS and versions, everything that you know and love about.
So what's the state of DevOps in IT now?
It's still continuing. If you were to say that we checkbox DevOps is done, then we are completely wrong and we did everything wrong for 18 months. DevOps is constantly moving, constantly changing. It's not a product that you can actually go out and buy. It's not something you can code. It's not a way to write code. It is an entire practice around automation, a team of really good people. So it's going to continue as time goes on. It's not a day-night switch. So it's continuing some values that we hold.
Yeah, if anyone ever asks you to deliver DevOps, just tell them to try again. It's not how it works.
Okay, I think I'm done interrogating you all. I have a few pattern fly stickers, so if you're not familiar with pattern fly, it is a framework that the Cockpit project is built on top of, and it's really awesome. So if you have not actually managed to make your way to Community Central, you can go down there and see that product down there. And I also have Project Atomic stickers, so for those of you who are brave enough to ask a question, I will hand stickers to you. What questions do y'all have?
Very important question. Did you start growing beards before or after?
So, beards before or after?
I know, I'm pretty.
Yeah, great.
I was post.
I had one, but I shaved.
Mine doesn't grow as well.
Thanks.
I apologize if this was answered already. Could you just clarify the difference between a Scrum Master and a Product Owner, if you've done it already?
Yeah, Jim, why don't you do it? She played both, so let's
The
have her talk.
Scrum Master is the one that whips people to do the work. Whips people to do the work? Totally kidding.
Right.
Product
No,
owner is the
that I
one that product owner is generally the one that frames and guides the strategy of the project that you're working on. So they generally are roles that are supposed to be considered combative and working together to kind of put pressure on the teams to make sure that we're constantly moving, but also not actually putting too much pressure on the teams so that they are ready to pull their hair out of. So to do them together at the same time can be somewhat difficult because you've got this, me talking to myself saying, well, can the team try to get this done within this period of time? I think if we add this additional work, that would be really great. And then the other person saying, well, you already asked them to do all this stuff already, and they're probably not going to be able to get this piece, so which one is more important to you? And in addition, I think both of them, although the Scrum Master more maybe, is supposed to train everybody to make sure they all understand effective communication and how to talk together. So this is the result, although they were probably pretty off, pretty well off before I got them. It's the result of my efforts to make them understand how important it was to talk to one another in a certain way.
And I think there's a real danger too with if somebody plays both Scrum Master and Product Owner to essentially just act like they're a manager and that they're kind of sort of demanding work be done because like you said, you're arguing against yourself and it's really a conflict of interest. But even if you split those two things up somehow in your head in some weird way, you're only really going to be 50% successful at either of them, which is failure. You can't do it. It's just not possible.
One common case study is hearing about success of DevOps is network. So, and I was doing an session in the morning and they talked about how did Netflix.
Okay, so should I repeat my question?
Yeah.
Okay, so one of the most common case studies on success of DevOps is Netflix. So they talk about how Netflix, an engineer can go in and he wants 2,000 instances or more instances of a certain server, can put it up, deploy, and then the features go up. But in real practice, have you actually seen elimination of ops from dev? Or is it just that in that particular homogeneous environment like Netflix, it works fine, but in the real world, is there elimination of ops because of DevOps?
No, I think it changes how ops and dev work. Yes. Did you ask, have we seen the elimination